There's a strange kind of peace that comes with anonymity. You spend half your life being recognized and the other half wishing you weren't. That night, I wanted quiet. No premieres, no cameras, no one asking for photos or telling me about the one movie of mine they remember most. I just wanted to do something ordinary, something simple, human. So I went to the movies, alone. It was a Saturday evening in Los Angeles. The sun was slipping behind the buildings, leaving that faint amber glow that makes the city look like it's holding its breath. I put on a plain black jacket, a baseball cap, and a mask. Nothing special, the kind of outfit that turns you invisible in a crowd. The theater was in a busy shopping district, glass doors, neon posters, people everywhere, couples taking selfies, teenagers laughing too loud, the smell of buttered popcorn mixing with air conditioning. I stood in line like everyone else, scrolling through my phone, pretending I had somewhere else to be. There's something about standing in the line that tells you a lot about people. Some stare at the screens, some fidget, some smile. I've always been an observer. It's a habit that never left me, even off camera. When it was my turn, the young woman behind the counter looked up and said, "What can I get you tonight, sir?" Her voice was polite, practiced. I pointed to a movie I'd been curious about, something small, not a blockbuster. One ticket, middle row, if you've got it. She smiled. We've got it. I paid in cash, no credit card, no name, old habit. Then I stopped by the concession stand, grabbed a small popcorn, and waited near the hallway for the next showing to open. Families passed by, kids with ice cream, a couple arguing quietly about seats. It was all beautifully normal. A teenage usher came over, checked the time on his phone, and waved us in. I followed the small crowd into the dim hallway. The carpet was soft. The air smelled faintly of sugar and soda syrup. I picked a seat a few rows from the back, not too close, not too hidden. When the lights dimmed, I took a breath. For a moment, nobody cared who I was. Nobody was watching me. I was just another man in a dark room, waiting for a story to begin. And that, to me, felt like freedom. I remember thinking how rare it is to just exist, no expectations, no spotlight, just people side by side waiting for the same thing. A couple of quiet hours where life pauses and someone else's story takes over. But of course, life doesn't always let you stay invisible for long. That night, something happened that reminded me, even in the dark, you never really stop seeing. It started small, like most things that end up meaning something do. The movie hadn't even begun yet. The room was dim, filled with that low hum of people settling into their seats, the rustle of popcorn bags, the shuffle of footsteps, a cough or two. I'd found my spot in the back row, mask on, cap low. It was quiet, ordinary, exactly what I came for. Then a voice cut through the calm, sharp, frustrated. "That's my seat." At first, I didn't even look up. Arguments about seats are just part of public spaces, small storms that blow over fast. But the tone shifted, louder now. "I paid for this one. Check your ticket." A woman's voice, softer, nervous. Sir, I think there's been a mix-up. I can move. He interrupted. No, you move because you're wrong, not because you're being nice. The man's voice carried confident, entitled, too loud for a theater that hadn't gone dark yet. A few people turned around. A couple of kids in the front row started whispering. The previews flickered on the screen, but nobody was watching. I glanced over. He was standing 2 rows ahead, mid 40 seconds. Designer jacket. The kind of posture that says he's used to getting his way. The woman, maybe in her 30s, held her ticket out, her hand shaking slightly. The usher, a young kid, probably 18 or 19, walked over, flashlight trembling in his hand. Sir, if I could just see your ticket. The man scoffed. Oh, so now you're taking her side? That line changed the air. I've been in enough rooms to feel when tension starts to harden, it gets quieter, tighter, like everyone's holding their breath. The usher stayed calm. I'm just trying to help you find your correct seat. The man leaned in close. You're trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. That's what you're doing. The kid froze. You could see the fear, the kind that doesn't belong in a face that young. He stepped back, mumbling something about checking with the manager. I watched the whole thing from my seat. Every instinct told me to say something, but I didn't, not yet. There's a fine line between stepping in and making a scene. You learn with time that the best way to understand people is to let them reveal themselves first. The man threw his jacket onto the seat, still muttering. The woman moved down a row without a word. Nobody clapped, nobody spoke, just that quiet, uneasy silence that follows humiliation. The previews kept rolling, explosions, laughter, fake romance. But the real drama was already over, right there in front of us. I sat back, eyes on the screen, but mind elsewhere. Not angry, just curious about why people act the way they do when they think no one important is watching. And as I sat there, I had no idea that I'd see him again, not as the loud man in the theater, but as someone with a lot more to lose. There's a moment right before you decide to step in, when the whole world feels like it's holding its breath. That's where I was sitting in the dark, watching a stranger's temper fill the room. The usher had come back with the manager, a young woman, maybe in her late 20s, all professionalism and calm. You could tell this wasn't the first time she'd had to diffuse something ugly in public. She smiled, steady voice. Sir, we can find you another seat, or I can offer you a refund. But the man wasn't hearing any of it. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, defiance written across his face. I'm not moving. I paid for this, and I'm not being told what to do. The woman tried again. I just want everyone to enjoy the show. He cut her off. You're just saying that because she complained first. You always take their side. It wasn't just about a seat anymore. It rarely ever is. Now it was about pride and losing control in front of an audience. A few people started whispering. Someone in the back muttered, "Come on, man, sit down." The manager glanced around, trying to keep the peace, but the tension had already taken root. The woman who'd been shouted at was sitting frozen, staring down at her popcorn like it was the only thing keeping her in place. I could have stayed quiet. God knows I've done it before, let people unravel on their own. But that night, something in me said, enough. Maybe it was the way the usher's hands trembled again. Maybe it was the woman's silence. Or maybe it was just that voice, the one that tells you it's time to stand up, even when no one asked you to. So I did. I walked down a few steps, slow, calm. I didn't raise my voice. Hey, I said. He turned, confused maybe because I didn't sound angry. Why don't we all take a breath? I continued. This isn't worth the noise. Everyone just wants to enjoy the movie. He squinted, trying to make out my face beneath the cap and mask. Who the hell are you supposed to be? I smiled beneath the mask. Nobody special. Just someone who doesn't like seeing people get pushed around. The room was quiet again, but a different kind of quiet. He stared for a long second, then scoffed. Whatever, man. He grabbed his drink, muttered something under his breath, and finally moved 2 seats over. The manager exhaled. The usher gave me a nervous nod of thanks. I just waved it off and went back to my seat. As the opening credits rolled, I could still feel his eyes on me, curious, irritated, maybe embarrassed. But I didn't turn. Some moments don't need applause or attention. They just need someone to remind the room how to breathe again. It was 2 nights later when I saw him again. Not in a dark theater this time, but under the bright, deliberate lights of a film charity gala downtown. The kind of event where everyone looks like they belong, polished, poised, rehearsed. I wasn't supposed to be there long. Just a quick appearance, a handshake or two, a few words for the cameras, and then gone. I was standing near the back of the ballroom, talking to a producer about a scholarship fund, when I noticed him across the room. He was laughing too loudly, surrounded by a small group, the kind of crowd that gravitates toward whoever seems most important. But when his eyes met mine, that laugh died in his throat. Recognition hit him like a flash of lightning. His expression froze, then shifted confusion, disbelief, embarrassment, all in one breath. He blinked like he was trying to make sure it was really me. I didn't move, just gave him a small nod. Nothing more. A woman nearby, someone from the studio, I think, leaned in to whisper, "That's Mr. Freeman." And that was when his whole posture changed. You could see it. Shoulders straightened, smile tight, confidence melting into something uneasy. He hesitated, then walked toward me. Slow steps, careful ones. Every bit of the arrogance he had in that theater was gone, replaced by something that almost looked like humility. Almost. When he reached me, he extended a hand. "Mr. Freeman," he said, voice low, I didn't expect to see you here." I took his hand, firm but calm. Life has a way of circling back, doesn't it? He nodded quickly, looking down for a moment. The noise around us, faded laughter, clinking glasses, soft jazz, it all felt distant. I gestured toward a quieter corner near the balcony. "Why don't we talk somewhere else?" He hesitated, Of course, he said, and we walked side by side through the crowd, every eye on us without knowing why. Outside, the city air was cooler, quieter. You could still hear the muffled hum of conversation behind the glass doors. He leaned against the railing, looking at the street lights below. About the other night, he started, but the words seemed to get stuck halfway. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I wanted to see what he'd choose to say when no one was watching, when there was no audience, no one to perform for. Finally, he exhaled. I shouldn't have talked to that woman like that, or that kid. I was having a bad day. I raised an eyebrow. Not accusing, just waiting. He looked up at me, searching for a reaction, but I gave him none. Sometimes silence does more work than anger ever could. He shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat. Can I buy you a drink? Maybe make it up somehow? I smiled faintly beneath my breath. Let's just talk, I said. We'll start there. And as we sat down under the dim balcony light, I could feel the moment settling in the quiet before a truth you can't dodge anymore. We sat across from each other in a quiet corner of the balcony lounge, the city lights flickering below, the muffled sound of the event still drifting through the doors. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Silence has a way of demanding honesty, and I wanted him to feel it. He cleared his throat first. Listen, about that night in the theater. His voice was low, careful. I lost my temper. It wasn't about the seat, really. I'd had a rough week. I nodded slowly. We all have rough weeks, but not everyone takes them out on strangers. He looked down, twisting his watch strap nervously. You're right. I shouldn't have said what I said. It's just sometimes people treat me like I don't matter unless I shout. I leaned back, studying him. That's a dangerous lesson to learn and an even worse one to teach. He gave a weak laugh, more from discomfort than humor. I didn't realize it was you that night, he said, glancing up. If I had, I stopped him with a small gesture. That's exactly the point. You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with respect. The words hung there between us. He exhaled, nodding, but I could tell he was still trying to protect his pride. I didn't want to crush it, just help him see beyond it. When I was younger, I said quietly, I thought strength was about control, about winning arguments, standing taller than the next man. But somewhere along the way, I learned that real strength is in restraint, in how you treat the person who can't do a thing for you. He nodded again, slower this time. That kid, the usher, he murmured. He looked terrified. Yeah, I said. And he'll probably remember you longer than you'll remember him. That's how power works, even when you don't think you have any. He went still, staring out at the skyline. The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable, just real, honest. Finally, I leaned forward. You can't change what happened, I said, but you can decide what happens next. Maybe you go back there, talk to that kid, or maybe you just start by noticing the people you pass every day. Either way, you've got a choice. He nodded. I'll think about it. Good, I said, standing. Just make sure thinking turns into doing. Otherwise, all this is just talk. He smiled faintly, a little embarrassed, but lighter somehow. You sound like one of your movies, he said. I chuckled. No cameras this time, just light. We shook hands, a simple human thing, and I walked away, leaving him under the balcony lights, alone with his thoughts. Sometimes that's where change really starts, in the silence after the truth lands. A few weeks went by after that conversation. Life, as it always does, moved on meetings, scripts, late night phone calls, the quiet rhythm of work that fills the days between moments that matter. I didn't expect to hear from him again. Honestly, I didn't think about him much. But change, real change, doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it shows up quietly, like a whisper behind the noise. It started with a letter, not an email. A handwritten letter in a simple white envelope delivered to my office. My assistant handed it to me with a curious look. Inside was a folded page, the handwriting uneven, a little rushed. Mr. Freeman, it began. I don't know if you'll remember me, but I owe you an apology not for what happened that night, but for who I was in that moment. I paused. He continued. I went back to the theater, found the same usher and the same woman. I told them the truth, that I was wrong, that I'd let pride do the talking. They didn't say much. The kid just nodded. The woman smiled, said it was okay. But I knew it wasn't about being forgiven. It was about facing it. I remember reading that line twice, facing it. Most people spend a lifetime running from the reflection they don't want to see. He went on to say that he had started volunteering at a local youth center, helping kids who were trying to get jobs. He said it wasn't about redemption. It was about learning how to listen again. At the end of the letter, he wrote one more thing. You once said real strength is restraint. I didn't understand it then. I think I do now. I folded the paper carefully and set it aside. Didn't frame it, didn't call anyone. Some things don't need to be shared, they just need to be remembered. A few days later, I heard from a friend who runs the same theater. She told me the young usher, the kid who had faced that man's anger, got promoted to a supervisor role. Apparently, the man had written a letter on his behalf, praising his patience and professionalism that night. I didn't say much, just smiled. The world has a way of closing its circles when you least expect it. I never saw him again after that. Didn't need to. I didn't want to thank you or to be some kind of moral checkpoint in his story. I just hoped he'd keep going in the right direction. Sometimes the best endings aren't the ones that make headlines. They're the ones that happen quietly in small gestures, in handwritten words, in the space between who we were and who we're still trying to become. A few nights later, I went back to the same theater, same ticket booth, same faint smell of buttered popcorn and carpet cleaner. It wasn't about the movie. I just wanted to sit somewhere quiet, somewhere ordinary. Sometimes normalcy is its own kind of peace. I ordered a small drink, nodded to the young clerk behind the counter, and found a seat near the back. The lights dimmed, The trailers rolled, and for a while, it was just me and the hum of the projector. As the screen flickered, I found myself thinking back to everything that had unfolded, the argument, the encounter, the letter. I didn't plan any of it. I didn't expect any of it. But life has a strange way of handing you small mirrors when you least expect them. Sometimes you see yourself, and sometimes you see the kind of person you hope you never become. I don't believe in preaching. I've never thought of myself as a man with all the answers, but I've lived long enough to notice this. People are always fighting something you can't see. Pride, fear, shame. The need to be noticed in a world that never looks up. That night in the theater wasn't about right or wrong. It was about recognition. Seeing someone's worst moment and choosing not to define them by it. Because if every one of us was frozen at our lowest point, nobody would ever deserve a second chance. I thought about that man, the one who had lashed out over something so small. Maybe he'd moved on. Maybe he hadn't. But for a moment in time, he'd stopped, reflected, tried. And that, to me, mattered more than any apology. The movie on screen faded to black. Applause scattered lightly through the room. I stayed seated for a minute longer, letting the noise fade. Around me, people grabbed their jackets, whispered goodbyes, checked their phones, all the little sounds of life going on. I took out the same mask I'd worn that first night, folded it in my hand instead of putting it on. No one was looking anyway. As I stepped out into the cool night air, the city glowed, not loud, not alive in the way it used to be when I was younger, but steady, reliable, a place where stories like this one happen every day, unnoticed. Sometimes I think about how many moments like that pass quietly, a small act of kindness, an unexpected apology, a change of heart. They don't make headlines, but they build something deeper, a quieter kind of hope. I didn't need to write it down. I didn't need to tell anyone. Some lessons belong only to the moment and to the man who learns them. So I just walked home. No music, no entourage, no spotlight, just the sound of my footsteps, steady against the pavement, fading into the night. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever had a moment that made you see people differently, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Sometimes one quiet reflection can spark another.